All right, hey, good morning out there to everybody. Gabe DeArmond here in the other window on your screen. I mean, at least hopefully, is Sean Williams, the recruiting editor at PowerMizzou.com. This is the Tuesday Tiger Recruiting Show. We are going to do this every Tuesday. Maybe not at the same time. We're going to do it at some point every Tuesday between now and the end of football season. This show is going to be brought to you all season long by Brandon Barnes and USA Mortgage. Brandon Barnes, former safety/linebacker at Missouri. This kind of indicates both how old I am and how old Brandon is. Brandon played on the first couple of Missouri teams that I covered back in 03 and 04. I remember he had an interception of Xavier Simmons, one of the Texas Tech quarterbacks that threw for like 8 million yards, and on the day that Brad Smith had like 972 yards rushing, and Missouri scored 60 points on Mike Leach. But former Mizzou football player. He actually worked at Mizzou for a while too. He is now in the mortgage business. ShowMeMortgages.com. You can go there. It's right up. ShowMeMortgage.com, right up there on the graphic. His phone numbers are on the graphic. Get a hold of him on his cell at 573-590-0001. He's got great products, low rates. I've heard. I just refinanced a couple years ago, but I've heard this is an excellent time to refinance and save a whole lot of money on your mortgage. So do that with Brandon Barnes when you are looking for any sort of mortgage service. And now that we've got some bills paid, Sean and I, every Tuesday, we're going to talk recruiting. Sean, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Not much, man. I like the dig at Mike Leach's defense right off the top of the show.
Yeah, we try to get some in. I mean, Mike Leach, he doesn't really to be fair, it wasn't Mike Leach's defense. He got nothing to do with that side of the ball.
Right.
And hey, I do want to let you guys know if there are any issues as far as audio, video, anything like that, just throw them in the comments, because everything sounds good on our end, but I know sometimes you guys hear things that are different. So if anybody's too loud, too quiet, anything like that, just throw something in the comments and we'll get on it and fix it. So let's hit this off the top, Sean. We had some topics we were going to discuss yesterday, and there is some interesting chatter on our message board right now. Now, look, I'm a big believer in this. Why would anybody buy the cow if you give them the milk for free, right? We want people to sign up for our site. So we'll just say, yes, there is some discussion that Luther Burden could be back on the market in the coming days. And that is not just the discussion that's been out there for the last few weeks. Like, I spoke to a colleague of ours this morning who believes that to be the case, who covers a team that Luther Burden is currently committed to. But, like, I know that you guys are going to have 60 questions about that, but we're going to talk about that on our site. Sean, I don't know if there's anything you want to add. We've known this could be a possibility for a while. It looks like maybe it's a little bit more of a possibility now, but let's be clear, it hasn't happened.
Right. Yeah. I think, there's always been some signs, especially over the summer, like we've heard about it even back in the spring, but he was, Luther's been pretty quiet about it, on social media and stuff. But now you see over the summer, he's posting some more stuff. He's posting pictures of, his Missouri visits. He's openly talking about taking other visits to Georgia, Alabama. So, yeah, he's been hitting around. He's been a little bit more public about just a kind of an openness in his recruiting process, even though he's committed to Oklahoma. So not really a shock. But, yeah, we've got a little nugget on the board. Go check it out. Sign up to PowerMizzou.com.
Exactly. I mean, it's like $8.33 a month if you do the year. I think a lot of the people who are watching right now probably are already subscribed. If we have people that aren't, look, I mean, we do these shows and we put them out there publicly for free. We get them sponsored and all that so that everybody can kind of get a taste of what we do. But we don't put everything on here. If you sign up for the site, you're going to get a little bit more information, but there's not a ton to share on that situation right now because the truth is we don't know. We're waiting for the next thing to publicly happen and all these things. The comparison I've always made in recruiting is like people like to talk about silent commits and all these things. Look, there's no such thing as a secret boyfriend, right? If you won't tell everybody else you're committed or decommitted, then you aren't committed or decommitted.
Right. Until it becomes official, then
Yeah.
it's all rumors and speculation right now.
Yeah, not that either one of us ever in high school or middle school would have had a girl tell us, like, it's cool, you can be my boyfriend, just don't let anybody else know about it. It'll just be like our little secret. It's that type of thing. So let's talk about what actually has happened in recruiting. And I mean, speaking of Luther Burden, everybody got a little excited there for a minute on I guess it was Sunday afternoon when
you were in people's days.
Yeah,
Saturday.
when we indicated there was a flip coming. There was a flip coming. That flip was not at the time Luther Burden. It was Xavier Simmons, a linebacker who was committed to Virginia Tech since June 19th and flipped to Missouri. And Sean, I know he visited Mizzou in June, and I'll be honest, he committed to Virginia Tech a week and a half later, and I just kind of forgot about him. I mean, was he still on your radar at all, or?
Yeah, it's not really, just because hey, he committed like I said, a week and a half after he visited Missouri. So I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, he seems pretty solid. It seems like he's pretty solid to Virginia Tech, but so I kind of forgot about him. And not to say that Missouri's. We've kind of seen it recently here with this last few wave of offers. They're offering kids that are committed elsewhere, and even though he committed to Virginia Tech, I mean they still kept the communication going, and really kind of just kind of odd to see it, because you do kind of forget about guys like that do they commit to Virginia Tech right like a few days after taking your Missouri visit, and you're like, oh, well, it seemed pretty solid, but obviously it wasn't the case. I mean, he told you he wanted to play in the SEC all along, so. Just kind of a weird situation. If you wanted to play in the SEC and Missouri really likes you, well, why did you commit to Virginia Tech? But I guess he had his reasons to do that. But it just kind of shows the persistence of Missouri's staff to really continue to go after him. I mean, obviously he was their top guy, and they eventually got him to flip over the weekend. So
yeah, and he did say one of the things early on was he was a little bit worried about the distance from home. So that's understandable. And also, let's be honest, in this day and age of college football, who knows, man? At that time, it was certainly possible Virginia Tech would be in the SEC. Maybe they still would be. Maybe they'll be in the Pac-12. And ain't nobody know what conference anybody's going to play in next year.
Right.
But like Simmons as a player, I mean, he told me that most coaches say for his size, they love his speed. That's kind of what separates him. I mean, I know obviously you haven't seen him in person, I don't think, but just kind of in talking to other people who do what we do or anything like that, anything that jumps out to you about him as a prospect?
Yeah, just his size. I mean, 6'3", 215, speed. You mentioned that. Obviously he's versatile as a linebacker. He can play inside or outside. But yeah, I mean, just kind of all the intangibles you really want at a linebacker position, especially in the SEC. To have that kind of size and speed. I mean, SEC is all about speed, and you got to have that on defense too to succeed. So, those are kind of the three things that really stick out about Simmons overall.
And I kind of thought initially, I think we thought they'd only take one linebacker in this class. Well, now Cameron Wilkins transfers in the middle of fall camp, and I think maybe that opens up the possibility that they take one more. I don't necessarily know who it would be. I know they had recently offered a kid who committed to Georgia Tech. I'm sure there are probably still some other linebacker offers out there that haven't committed anywhere, but.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this in the chamber recently. They've got they sent an offer to the Devin Smith kid. He told me he kind of was thinking about taking an official to Missouri this fall. Kyle Effort's the kid that's committed to Georgia Tech right now, loosely committed to Georgia Tech. I think he's kind of weighing his options too, maybe wanting to visit other schools, making sure he's made the right decision. Duncan Parham, the kid out of Norman, Oklahoma. That's another kid they're keeping an eye on. They brought him. He came in for a visit in July. I think he had a workout with them. I think the staff really wants to kind of see some more senior game film from him before they kind of take him a little bit more serious. But yeah, there's possibilities right there. And like you said, there's a possibility that they could, take a second linebacker. Those are three options right now that they're at least looking at, showing some interest in. They could possibly visit in the fall and maybe, go from there.
Well, all the Mizzou recruiting news right now revolves around Norman, Oklahoma. Duncan Parham, right, exactly, Luther Burden, everything happening out of Norman. So they've got 13 guys right now. I think we initially started saying a class of maybe 20. More and more with some of these transfers, I'd be surprised if they don't get to 25, wouldn't you? Or pretty close.
Yeah. I would think so. I mean, that's the thing with transfers, attrition, all that stuff. You kind of have numbers. It's almost like it seems like every staff kind of they recruit during the summer and then they kind of hit the reset button once fall starts going and see where they're at, see whose possibility that might be the last year playing. So, yeah, with transfers leaving, at the end of the year, attrition, all that stuff. I mean, I would lean toward definitely 20, anywhere between 20 and 25. I mean, they're sitting at 13 right now. We know they're going to take, we know they're pushing for 3 or 4 more possibilities at different positions. We expect that number to expand a lot too. And obviously they're going to bring in some transfers as well. That's a given.
Right. So I think Drinkwood said they'd be looking at like 15 to 17 guys ideally when the season started. So we're talking 2 to 4 more spots maybe in the next 3 weeks in a perfect world. Look, we know if Luther Burden decommits from Oklahoma today and calls Missouri and says, I want to commit, they're taking him regardless of what the numbers say. That's one we know for a fact. I mean, who are maybe some other kids that you see out there that hey, no doubt they've got a spot, whether it's today or, December 19th or next August, they've got a spot in this class?
Gentry Williams.
Yeah.
The safety, 4-star safety. He's been on campus twice this summer.
Yep.
Obviously has a good relationship with Coach Fletcher, Aaron Fletcher, the DB's coach. So from his time at Tulsa there. I would say Deion Walker too, the big offensive tackle out of Cass Tech, Detroit.
What about the other offensive lineman from up there, Jackson Pruitt? You think he's in that category?
Yeah. I think it's possible. I mean, he came back. Obviously he camped at Missouri in June, and they eventually extended him an offer later in June after he camped there, and then he came back in July. So obviously there's some interest there if he wanted to come back and check it out a little bit more in person. So he's been to Missouri twice on his end, so I think he's a possibility as well. And you kind of look, and we talked about it. Dominic Orange, the defensive tackle out of KC, maybe was a little bit lower on the radar entering the summer, and then he came in and worked out in July, and apparently that workout went pretty well.
Right.
And so it seems like maybe he's kind of sprung up their target board, at least on the defensive tackle aspect. And I think he's a guy that they would really take regardless as well. So,
and look, 375-pound high school seniors don't really grow on trees, right? That is a true anchor. And now you got to be able to move. There's more to it than just how much you weigh, but that is a number that catches your attention.
Yeah, and we were talking about that, I think maybe before he visited, just during the summer, before he came in for that workout. I mean, 375, that is a large human being. And I guess he impressed enough with his footwork, and they think he can really play in the SEC. And I mean, to see a guy move that size, move that well, I mean, I guess they were impressed enough that he's moved up their board. So, I mean, he's one to definitely keep an eye on moving forward.
Yeah, DJ Wesselak's an interesting one there to me. If he wants to commit to Missouri today, yeah, I'm pretty positive he can. Now,
right.
There's no indication he wants to do that, so that situation could change by December, as people fill up spots. An interesting one that Case brings up, he says Kevin Coleman definitely has a spot. And, I think I agree with that, right? I mean, look, he's the number 2 receiver in America, I think. He's a top 30 prospect. If that kid says, I want to come, then you take him. But it also is an interesting little balancing act because I think the reality is, and this isn't based on, I mean, yeah, is part of it, hey, some chatter about maybe they don't get along and they don't want to play together in college, which we've heard for a year with him and Luther Burden. Is that part of it? Sure it is. But also it's a sheer numbers thing. I mean, if, how many wide receivers do you have? Those guys like to get the ball. Maybe that's a reason they wouldn't want to go to the same place. So I'm not saying this is happening, but it would be interesting to be Eli Drinkwitz if all of a sudden Luther Burden's on the market and Kevin Coleman says, hey, I think I want to come. That's a little balancing act that you might have to do.
Yeah, that's a wild card for sure, and definitely somebody I was going to mention. But yeah, a wild card nonetheless, because it seems like Missouri is definitely making a huge push for Burden, obviously for good intentions. But it seems like that momentum with Kevin Coleman's picked up, especially during the summer. He was up there for the 7-on-7 tournament. You guys talked to him. Seems like there is a renewed interest in Missouri. Missouri is a school that he hadn't had in his top 15 or top 12s or, whatever top schools he's released, in recent months and everything. And now, he told you guys after being up there talking to the staff, he's got a better sense and much more interest in Missouri now than he ever has. So, yeah, you got. I mean, look, you got a potential you've got 2 5-star kids that are right there in your backyard. Yeah, times are good for the 2022 class.
Right.
Man,
I was going to say, I've covered Missouri recruiting for a while. 2 things are happening right now that I don't remember before. Number one, wait, the kid we flipped is only a high 3-star from a Power 5 program that's clearly been better than we have. And then number 2, which one of the top 2 receivers in the country would we maybe rather have? These are good problems to have. I think you'd be okay with that much more than which kid can we find that was committed to UTEP to fill out the class, right? and that's not meant to be a shot to previous staffs, but the truth is Missouri is recruiting just at a level that hasn't been done around here before. Like we've said, speaking doing things at a higher level. Again, I want to draw your attention. These shows are possible because of the people that sponsor them throughout the week, and we are doing shows 5 days a week this year. Yesterday we had the weekend recap with Mitchell Forty. He'll join me again tomorrow for the 573 report. On Thursday, we're going to do weekend previews of opponents in the SEC and college football, things like that. And then we'll have our game day coverage. But today's show is always going to be recruiting on Tuesday. It is always going to be sponsored by Brandon Barnes at USA Mortgage. He is former Mizzou athlete, former Mizzou employee, current mortgage broker. You can go to showmemortgage.com. His email address is there. His cell phone number and his office number are there. Honestly, even his address is on that graphic. It's East Broadway. I think it says 33 East Broadway, Suite 290. So, you could just drive by and be like, what's up, Brandon? I was watching the show, and I want a new house, So, make sure to, if you are in the market for anything related to your mortgage or your house, hit up Brandon Barnes. So, we hit kind of some individual guys. Sean, I want to wrap up with this. And these daily shows, again, look, we're doing this every day. We're not going to go an hour and a half. We're going to go 20, 30 minutes usually most days. I wanted to kind of hit on more big picture. I broke down a little bit yesterday morning in my Monday morning post where it looked like Missouri would end up, taking into account, hey, here's teams that they flat out aren't going to pass. Here's teams that they could pass, and here's teams that will probably pass them. I would set the over-under on the class rank at 20.5. So the over means they're ranked 20th. The under means they're ranked 21st. That seems like a pretty fair line for me to where this class would end up.
Yeah, I think that's good. Just kind of looking at the numbers, and obviously, hey, who knows how many they'll get? But if if they can get guys like Orange, I mean, that's another highly rated. We're talking about guys that are highly rated they can get, and I think that's going to kind of supplement if they don't take a full 25 class of high school kids. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a good possibility. I know when we kind of talked about topics going into this, I mean, they're at 25 right now. Maybe they'll be a little frugal here at the first of the fall, and then they'll maybe get a little bit more aggressive throughout heading into December in the early sign-in period. But yeah, I think that's probably a good number right there, just in terms of being in that 20 range. I think that's kind of and I mean, hey, that's a good range to be in. I mean, that's something that we were talking about at last year's class was pretty historic in that terms. And if you keep that momentum going and you keep finishing in that top 25, top 20 range 3 or 4 years, you're going to kind of see results, hopefully, in the SEC. So,
yeah. Last year was 20, and it was the highest-ranked class in school history. So, look, if you end up 22 and it's the third highest-ranked class in school history, you can't really be upset. But the key is kind of what you're talking about. It's not just getting more guys. It's getting – I mean, somebody posted on our board yesterday, again, hypothetical with Luther Burden. Had he committed to Missouri yesterday, they would have gone from the number 25 class in the country to number 10 with one kid.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of difference a top 10 kid in America makes, or a top 250 kid doesn't make that kind of difference, but you do get bonus points, or a top 10 defensive lineman, whatever. There's all kinds of things that factor into it. I treat our recruiting formula kind of like the QB ranking. I know there's math to it. I don't know what it is, and I don't understand it, and I don't try to figure it out. I just trust the people that do.
Yeah, I would have to look at the formula. to know what it is off the top of my head. So,
yeah. Real quick, but we'll go back to, and we will try to take some questions from you guys when we're doing this. Case wants to know, do you think Drink and the staff have a preference of Coleman or Burden? I mean, that's not necessarily fair for us to say. They'd be happy with either one. Again, it's really speculative to say, hey, are you in a situation where you could take one or the other? All I can do is give you my personal thought, which is, and look, I haven't seen Kevin Coleman play in person because he didn't work out the day I was there. He was just there. But my only thought is, if I'm choosing between two guys, I will generally err toward, 6'1", 210, or whatever Luther Burden is, versus Coleman, he's fast, but he's a little bit smaller. He doesn't quite have the frame that Luther Burden does. So generally, I think you might want a little bit bigger kid, because if he's going to be over the middle taking some hits in the SEC, the guy with 20 extra pounds maybe holds up a little bit better. But
yeah, I agree with that. But, you kind of perception is, I mean, it seems like maybe they're leaning more towards Burden, but that's just perception, just because he's been on campus a lot, throughout the spring and the summer. We know Coleman was there once during the summer. So, I mean, whether that changes and Coleman makes, another visit or two during the fall, we'll see. But, yeah, perception seems to be that definitely Coleman is their guy. But, I mean, that may not be reality, though. I mean,
right.
But I agree with your thoughts, though. You want to kind of, if you got 2 5-star kids, you want to kind of take the guy that has a little bit more size, a little bit more weight, can take the poundage in football too. So,
and look, this is why these guys get paid a lot of money. Like, there's 200 offers out. They can't take them all, right? So it's up to them to decide if they do get in a situation where Kevin Coleman calls and says, yo, I think I want to commit. Like,
right.
You don't really slow play 5-stars, man. That's not really a thing that happens, So now, do you maybe, if something like that happens, is there maybe a call to Luther Burden that says, look, man, we got one. Like,
right.
Hey, you got a spot, but only for 12 hours or something like. I mean, again, probably not. This is all hypothetical, and I don't want anybody to take this as neither one of them's called Missouri and said they're coming. Let's put it that way, right? Let's see what happens down the road. But so yeah, top. If I'm setting it at 20.5, are you saying higher or lower in the end?
I'm gonna go with higher.
Okay.
Just on the perception, just my personal opinion, I think they end up with Burden, and I think that's going to make a huge difference in the rankings. If that happens, if you get a guy like that, I mean, that's going to be a huge boost.
To really know, I'd have to look at like how many 5-stars and 4-stars are still out there, and are those kids like, hey, if they all go to Alabama and Ohio State, it doesn't matter because those teams are already ahead of Missouri, right? But if teams like Auburn and Florida and some of these schools that are behind Missouri right now start picking up some of those kids, that makes a difference. I mean, I would probably say slightly under 20 right now, like slightly worse than 20, but not by more than, I think they'll be in the top 25, and because it's better for business, scratch that. They're going to be in the top 20. No question. I'd definitely take the over at 20.5.
Well, we gotta play good cop, bad cop here, Gabe. I mean, I'm the good cop. You can be the bad cop,
Dude,
you've already ruined people's Saturdays over the weekend. So
yeah, I might as well ruin Tuesday too. Look, I've been the bad cop for so long. It's just now it's just the cop, man. There's nothing more to it.
But I think with rankings too, you're always gonna, going back to formulas, our rivals rankings are always taking your best 20 commitments. Mm-hmm. So, is Missouri going to get to that point? I mean, we think they will, but we don't know that right now. So, that's a factor too.
And also a flaw is transfers don't count, right? Like, last year's class was 20, but I mean, they had a 4-star transfer. That doesn't count for who was a freshman, who doesn't count for anything in that class, and that's just a flaw in the system that there's really nothing that can be done about it at this point in time, but it happens. So I don't know, Sean, it feels like for the first time this has gone fairly smoothly, so maybe we should just cut out, but I don't know, is there anything else that we, I mean, we're kind of in a dead period, no visitors for a couple weeks, so nothing immediate that we know about.
Yeah, I think it's good to make this one maybe short and sweet. Like I said, I mean, we're in a dead period right now. I mean, they, obviously Missouri is offering some more defensive backs. So, I mean, now obviously that's a preference for them going forward. And like I said, we mentioned Gentry Williams, but, a lot of thoughts out there that Williams is leaning towards Oklahoma, and that probably will be the case. But obviously, that relationship with Fletcher is kind of big, you know. But they're keeping their eyes open on more DBs, and more DBs that are committed to other Power 5 schools. So we've obviously been keeping up with that on PowerMizzou.com. So that's something to really keep an eye on, looking forward. And one thing about, and we kind of mentioned this before we kind of went on air. Man, Missouri's coaches, they're aggressive. They don't care to offer kids and go after kids that are committed to Power 5 schools, and they've been dishing out offers to some of those kids recently. So.
Yeah, no question. It's interesting times for fans of Mizzou recruiting. Stay tuned to the message board all day. If anything develops, certainly, I think there will be discussion of it there. Anything develops on the Burden front, we don't know. Could happen today, could not happen today. Could happen later. Could never happen. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but stay tuned there. Real quick before we get out of here, once again, Brandon Barnes, Show Me Mortgages. Brandon Barnes at USA Mortgage, but the website address is showmemortgage.com. Check him out. Make sure to give him your business. You're helping out a former Mizzou player, helping out somebody who has been good to us and a good partner to us over the years, so we appreciate that. Houses, people are always buying houses, selling houses, refinancing, so there's always a market for that. Just give Brandon the first shot at your business, and if it doesn't end up happening, it doesn't end up happening, but at least give him a chance. A couple other things you can do for us before you leave here. Hit the like button on the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be doing these 5 days a week. You'll get alerts so that you can watch live. Now, we are going to put these shows on the site. We're going to podcast them, and they'll go out to our podcast feed, so make sure wherever you get your podcast to just search for the Power Mizzou podcast. Find that, subscribe to that, maybe even give it a review. My understanding of podcast reviews are 5-star reviews are good and make more people see the show. Less than 5-star reviews suck and make less people see the show. So don't give us less than a 5-star review. Either give us a 5-star review or just don't give us one, and that's fine. But we'd appreciate you doing all those things. Appreciate you watching. I'll be back with Mitchell 40 on the 573 report tomorrow. We'll give Sean a few days where he doesn't have to be a TV star, and he can come back next Tuesday on the recruiting report. So appreciate it, Sean.
Yeah, appreciate it, Gabe. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later on.